Welcome to our explainer. We're going to be looking at a piece of technology so advanced it's been stumping engineers for decades. But what if I told you that one of the most influential devices in the history of engineering doesn't actually exist? Okay, let's just take a second with that. Unilateral phase detractors, synchronizing cardinal grammeters. I mean, that sounds incredibly impressive, right? This is the kind of language you'd use for a true marvel of engineering, something that's been evolving for nearly 80 years. But what if all that fancy technical language was just a giant smokescreen? Yep, you guessed it. The machine you just heard about is not real. This is the story of the Encabulator, a brilliant satirical hoax that has become this beloved tradition in the technical world. It's a long-running inside joke that, honestly, tells us more about people than any real machine ever could. So what is this glorious, nonsensical machine, and how in the world has this joke survived for 8 decades, moving from old print journals all the way to viral internet videos? Let's dig in. To really get the joke, we have to go all the way back to its origin. The year is 1944. The world is in the middle of this massive boom of wartime tech, and the language being used to describe it all is getting super, super dense. For a lot of people, it was just completely impenetrable. So, along comes this British engineering student, John Helens Quick, and he notices that all this technical writing seems to be more about sounding smart than actually being clear. So for the student's quarterly journal, he cooks up this hilarious article describing a totally fictional machine, using what sounded like perfectly believable, but was actually completely nonsensical technobabble. And Quick was an absolute master of what we now call technobabble. He basically weaponized jargon. He put together sentences that just felt right. They sounded totally professional, but they were built on a foundation of pure, unadulterated nonsense. I mean, the original description is a work of art. Okay, let's break this down because this is where the genius is. Prefabulated aluminite? That sounds like a real, maybe even a name brand alloy, right? And a malleable logarithmic casing. He's applying a math concept to a physical object. It's absurd, but it sounds just right. It's brilliant satire. And this table really shows you the method to his madness. He mixed real-sounding technical ideas with totally made-up words. Hydrocoptic Marslavanes sounds like it has something to do with water power and ancient Egypt. An ambifacient lunar wane shaft hints that the machine is affected by the moon. It all sounds just plausible enough to make you stop and think, wait, is that a real thing? Now, a joke this good was never going to stay locked away in a British student journal. Oh no, it hopped right across the Atlantic, and pretty soon it took on a whole new life in American corporate and industrial culture. So by 1946, Time magazine is writing about it. Then, in '62, some engineers at General Electric actually made a formal data sheet for it, complete with a picture of a bunch of random parts thrown together. The joke was becoming a real part of the culture, kind of like a secret handshake for engineers. And by the '70s, it made the jump to video. But of course, its most famous version came with the internet age. Rockwell Automation put out the retro Encabulator video, and the narration, by an actor named Mike Kraft, was delivered with this perfect deadpan tone. He updated the classic jargon for a whole new generation. I mean, this video was a masterclass in how to pull off a hoax. They used real brand names, they filmed it in a real industrial facility. It felt totally legit. They updated the script with new phrases like inverse reactive current and unilateral phase detractors. And the whole package was so perfect that it just exploded online, introducing the joke to millions of new people. But the story doesn't stop in the '90s, not even close. The real genius of the Encabulator is that it's always evolving. It just keeps finding new, more complicated industries to make fun of. So get this, in 2022, Mike Kraft, the same narrator, came back for a new version, the Hyper Encabulator. But this time, the target wasn't mechanical parts. It was the crazy, buzzword-filled world of cybersecurity. It just goes to show how flexible this joke really is. And here's the crucial part. Look how well the parody holds up to reality. The features of the Hyper Encabulator, like colonic effluvium expulsion, sound absolutely ridiculous. But are they really any more ridiculous than actual terms like multi-hybrid, multi-cloud DevOps? The joke just perfectly highlights that every industry has its own language that sounds like nonsense to outsiders. The Encabulator is so much more than just a bunch of videos. Its spirit of creative, complicated absurdity is alive and well today.
both in the real world and in some amazing online communities.
You're not going to believe this. An engineer named Chris Fenton actually built a working turbo-encabulator. Notice he spells it with a T. It's an all-mechanical computer made from 3D printed parts, gears, and strings. No electronics. And it actually works. It calculates the Fibonacci sequence. It's just this beautiful physical tribute to the idea of unnecessary complexity.
And online, the spirit is just thriving in places like the subreddit VX Junkies. It's this whole community where people invent their own incredibly complex, totally fake machines, and then they help each other troubleshoot problems that don't exist, like gyroscopic ion tessellation. It's basically a massive, collaborative improv game for tech nerds. It's awesome.
So, all of this brings us right back to that big question. Why? Why has this super elaborate prank lasted for 80 years? Well, the answer is that it's actually way more than just a joke.
It's been called a vital sociological tool. That sounds fancy, but what it means is that underneath all the humor, the Encabulator serves a real purpose for the engineering community. Think of it like a self-correction system that's disguised as satire.
So here's what it does. First, it's a funny, constant reminder to choose clarity over just sounding complicated. Second, it encourages a healthy dose of skepticism. It teaches you to question big claims that are hidden behind a wall of jargon. And third, it builds community. If you know the joke, it's like a secret password. It's a sign that you're in on it. And this quote just sums it all up perfectly. The Encabulator is basically a tool that helps engineers ask a really important question. Behind all the buzzwords and the fancy language, is there anything, actually real? Is that girdle spring really connected to anything? So, if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's that the Encabulator has lasted because its real target isn't technology. It's the language we use to talk about technology. From the mechanical era of 1944 all the way to the age of cybersecurity, its lesson is more relevant than ever. And that kind of leaves us with one last thought. As our tech gets more and more complex, with things like AI and quantum computing creating their own wild new jargon, maybe a joke from 1944 isn't just funny. Maybe it's more important than it's ever been. Just something to think about. Thanks for watching.